All right, let's jump right in. When we talk about the Talmud, it can seem like this ancient, impenetrable text. But really, it's this incredible record of brilliant minds wrestling with some seriously fascinating questions. So today, we're going to peel back the layers on just one of those questions from a single page to get a real feel for its unique and, honestly, pretty powerful way of thinking.
So I want you to picture this. Imagine the ancient temple in Jerusalem. A non-Jew, a Gentile, travels there to bring an offering to God. I mean, that's a powerful image, right? It speaks to this universal desire to connect. But it also brings up a really thorny legal question. Does their offering get treated with the exact same level of sanctity as one brought by an Israelite? This isn't just about some old rules. It's about the very definition of holiness.
And this wasn't just some thought experiment. This was a real-world issue for the priests and the courts back then, and lucky for us, the Talmud records their debate in amazing detail. So, where does a conversation like this even begin?
Well, it all starts in the Mishnah. Now, if you're not familiar, the Mishnah is kind of the foundational layer of the Talmud, its core legal code. We're in a section called Zevachim, which is all about the laws of sacrifices. And right there, the Mishnah just lays out the basic dispute, perfectly setting the stage for the much deeper dive that's about to come.
And as is so often the case in the Talmud, this whole thing boils down to a classic legal showdown. You've got two major league sages, each with a totally compelling but completely opposite take on the question. So in one corner, we have Rabbi Shimon. He's arguing for the lenient view. He says, look, offerings from non-Jews should be exempt from some of the really strict penalties that come with sacrificial law. But in the other corner, you have Rabbi Yosai, and he's like, nope, an offering is an offering. Once it's dedicated to God, all the regular rules have to apply, no matter who brought it to the temple.
Okay, so two completely different answers. To really get what's going on, we have to take these arguments apart piece by piece. So let's start with Rabbi Shimon's lenient view. I mean, how on earth does he justify carving out this kind of legal exception? And the scope of his ruling is, wow, it's pretty wide. He isn't just tweaking some minor rule here. He says a Gentile's offering is exempt from liability for pigul. That's a big deal. It's when a priest has the wrong thoughts or intentions during the ritual. It's also exempt from natar, which is when consecrated meat is kept past its expiration date. And even tuma, eating the offering while ritually impure. For an Israelite's offering, these are huge violations, but according to Rabbi Shimon, not in this case.
So you have to be asking, where is he getting this from? This is where we get to see the genius of the Talmudic mind. His entire complex legal argument doesn't just come from a feeling that we should be lenient. No, it is a laser-focused, precise piece of textual analysis that hinges on just 3 little words in the Torah.
Now, to follow his logic, you have to understand the Talmud's legal toolkit. The rabbis had this whole system of interpretation, specific rules for how to derive laws from the biblical text. It's like they had a system for unlocking all the hidden layers of meaning in every single word. Okay, so the first tool Rabbi Shimon pulls out of the toolbox is called a gezerah shavah, which is a verbal analogy. The idea behind it is actually pretty elegant. It says that if the same unique word pops up in 2 totally different laws in the Torah, then those 2 laws are now legally connected. You can use the rules from one to help you understand the rules of the other.
And what Rabbi Shimon does with this is just brilliant. He builds this amazing chain of logic. First, he links the law of pigul, the improper intent, to the law of notar, the leftover meat, because the Torah uses the exact same word, iniquity, to talk about both. Okay, step 1. Then, he links notar to the laws of ritual impurity, because their verses share a different word, profanation. So now you've got pigul linked to notar, and notar linked to impurity. So what's the final link in the chain?
It's this phrase, right here. It's from the verse that's talking about ritual impurity. The Torah specifically says these laws apply to the sacred items of the children of Israel. And because Rabbi Shimon has linked all these different violations together with his gezerah shavah, that specific limitation, children of Israel, now travels all the way back up the chain. So if the impurity rule is limited to Israelites, well then so are the rules of nitar and pigul. It's an absolutely stunning piece of legal footwork.
But wait, he's not even done. He also exempts them from a prohibition called temura, that's illegally swapping out one sacred animal for another one. And for this, he uses a second tool from the kit, a hakas, or juxtaposition. This one is all about location, location, location. If the Torah puts 2 laws right next to each other in the text, we can assume they share some legal DNA. And here is what makes the Talmud just so incredible and intellectually honest. It immediately questions its own reasoning. The Gemara, which is the commentary on the Mishnah, chimes in and basically says, hold on a second. There's a meta rule that says you can't really chain these derivations together like that. You can't learn something from one juxtaposition and then immediately use that new information to teach something else via another juxtaposition. So isn't that exactly what Rabbi Shimon is doing?
The answer they land on is incredibly subtle, so stick with me. Turns out the rule against this double derivation only applies when the whole chain of reasoning stays within the world of sacred things. But Rabbi Shimon's argument, it traces the law of animal substitution back to the law of animal tithes, which is then linked to the tithe of grain. And grain tithe, well, that's considered non-sacred. So because the ultimate source of the entire derivation is non-sacred grain, the whole logical chain is allowed. It's like it gets a special pass to cross between legal categories because of where it started. It's mind-bending stuff.
Okay, whew, that was a serious deep dive into Rabbi Shimon's logic. So what about Rabbi Yossi? What's his counterargument? Well, as we're about to see, his reasoning for being stringent is way more direct, but in its own way, it's just as powerful.
Rabbi Yossi just cuts right through that whole web of textual analysis. He basically says, I see the logic to be stringent, and as proof, the Torah says that all of these offerings are brought to the Lord. But Rabbi Yossi, that's the whole game. The critical thing isn't the identity of the person giving the gift, it's the universal destination of the gift. If it's for God, it's fully sacred, period. End of story.
But don't mistake his argument for being simplistic. Rabbi Yossi also makes a really sophisticated distinction. He breaks sanctity down into two types. First, there's inherent sanctity, kedushat haguf, which is for things that are sacred in and of themselves, like an animal designated to go on the altar. Then there's value sanctity, kedushat demim, like money you donate for temple maintenance. He argues that his stringent position applies with full force to items with that inherent bodily sanctity. He kind of concedes that maybe, just maybe, Rabbi Shimon's exemptions could apply to something like a monetary donation, but no way for the actual sacred animal on the altar.
So after all of that incredible back and forth, from verbal analogies to juxtapositions and double derivations, what have we really been talking about this whole time? What's the fundamental principle that's really at stake here?
You know, at the end of the day, this whole thing can be seen as a clash between two completely different ways of understanding what holiness even is. Is sanctity something particular, something defined by the community it comes from, the children of Israel? Or is it universal, defined only by its dedication to the ultimate recipient, to the Lord?
Rabbi Shimon builds this careful, precise legal wall based on identity, while Rabbi Yossi argues for a single, universal standard of holiness. And it leaves us with this huge question that echoes way beyond this one specific case. It's a question for any community that has a sacred center. What does it actually mean for that space, and for the things people do there to be truly and completely universal?